My name is Daniel Ruiz, and for almost 8 years, I worked the overnight cleaning shift at St. Alden Memorial Hospital. Most people avoid hospitals after dark. I walked into one every night at 10 p.m. The hospital was quieter at night, too quiet. The buzzing lights, the soft beeping from empty rooms, the echo of your own footsteps following you down the halls. It always felt like the building breathed differently after midnight. My job was simple. Clean the older East Wing, empty trash, mop floors, and make sure everything was ready for the morning staff. But the East Wing had a reputation. Nurses said they heard voices when no patients were admitted. Security said motion detectors went off in empty hallways. I didn't believe any of that. Not then, at least. On my second week, I heard something that changed everything. I was mopping near room 214, a room that had been empty for years, when I heard slow, shuffling footsteps behind me. Not loud, just enough to make the hairs on my neck stand. I turned around expecting to see a nurse or maybe a patient who wandered off. But no one was there. Just an empty hallway stretching into darkness. I tried to laugh it off. Hospital settle. Old pipes. Air vents. That's what I told myself. But when I turned back to my mop bucket, something cold brushed across the back of my hand, like fingers. I jerked my hand away, heart slamming in my chest, and looked around again. Still no one. That was the first time I felt it. The sense that I wasn't alone in the wing, even when I knew I should have been. I forced myself to keep working, but the air around room 214 felt wrong. Heavy, like the temperature dropped 10 degrees without warning. I pushed my cart farther down the hallway, trying to shake off the feeling. Most nights, I'd put on music through the one earbud just to fill the silence. But that night, I couldn't. Something told me to keep my ears open. At 11:42 p.m., I reached the end of the East Wing. That's when I heard it again. A soft knock. 3 taps, slow and deliberate. I looked back, expecting to see the security guard messing with me. But the hallway was just as empty as before. The knock came again, this time louder, closer. It was coming from room 214. I shouldn't have gone near it. Every instinct in my body screamed to leave it alone, but my job meant checking everything. So I walked toward the room, each step echoing up the dark hallway. When I reached the door, I felt a cold draft spill out from underneath, like the room was refrigerated. I gripped the doorknob. It felt ice cold. I opened the door just enough to peek inside. Pitch black, no lights, no movement. But the instant the door creaked open, a sour, metallic smell rolled out, like old blood, the kind that sticks to your lungs. I swallowed hard, reached in and flicked the light switch. The fluorescent light blinked, flickered, buzzed, then finally stayed on. The room was empty. An old bed, a chair, an unplugged monitor, nothing else. But on the far wall, I saw something that made me step back. 3 fresh fingerprints, red, smudged downward, as if someone had dragged them with trembling hands. That room had no patients, no staff, no reason for fresh marks. And the metal smell in the air? It grew stronger. I backed out of the room quickly, shut the door, and locked it. My hands were shaking. Just when I thought the worst was over, my walkie-talkie crackled to life, static, soft at first. Then a whisper through the noise. "Help, room 214. My blood ran cold. No one used that room. No one was assigned to this wing. And I recognized the voice. It sounded like a woman, gasping for air. My fingers tightened around the walkie-talkie as the static faded. I waited, holding my breath, hoping it was just interference. But a second whisper came through, clearer this time, closer. "Please, don't leave me here." I froze. Every hair on my arms stood up. There was no possible way anyone could be in room 214. It had been sealed since the incident years ago. Even the nurses wouldn't talk about it. I forced myself to reply. "Security, this is maintenance. Anyone calling from East Wing? Over." Silence. Then another burst of static, but this time, a low, broken sob. I felt something cold move down my spine, like someone was standing behind me, breathing gently against the back of my neck. I turned around fast. Empty hallway. Same stale lights buzzing overhead, same quiet stillness. I clipped the walkie back to my belt and forced myself to continue down the hall. I told myself it had to be a radio bleed or some kind of prank, but deep down I knew better. As I reached the supply room, I found the door slightly open. I always closed it. Always. I pushed it open slowly. Inside, the shelves were untouched. Clean, orderly. Except for one thing. In the middle of the floor lay an old patient wristband. I picked it up. The name was faded, but still readable. Margaret H. Room, 214, deceased. I dropped it instantly. My throat felt tight. The temperature around me plunged again, sharp and sudden. My breath fogged in front of my lips. Then, a soft dragging sound came from down the hallway. Something being pulled across the floor. Slow, uneven, scraping. I peeked my head out from the supply room. At the far end of the corridor, just under the flickering lights, I saw it. A dark shape lying on the floor. Long. Motionless, a trail behind it, like something had been dragged all the way from room 214. I squinted, and then the shape twitched. Just once. That was all I needed. I stepped back into the room and shut the door. But as soon as it clicked shut, knock, right behind me. 3 taps. Slow, deliberate, exactly like before. I backed away from the door, heart thumping so loudly I could hear it echo inside my skull. The knocking didn't come again, just that single slow sequence. Like whoever or whatever was behind the door only wanted me to know it was there. I grabbed the nearest item I could use as a weapon, a metal mop handle. It was stupid, it wouldn't help. But holding something made me feel like I hadn't already lost. I waited. 5 seconds, 10, 15. Silence. Then the walkie on my belt crackled again. Except this time it wasn't a whisper, it was breathing. Labored, wet, right against the speaker. I slowly lifted it, keeping my eyes on the door in case it moved. "Security," I said, my voice barely steady. "If anyone's on this channel, please respond." The breathing stopped. Then a voice, broken like vocal cords long unused, forced itself through. "You shouldn't be here." My knees almost buckled. I stepped back until my shoulder hit the supply shelf. I didn't answer, couldn't. The walkie hissed again. "He never left." A whining sound built in the static, rising like someone screaming far, far away. I dropped the walkie. That's when the hallway lights all shut off at once. Thunk, 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 thunk. Section by section, the corridor plunged into darkness, moving toward me, like something was coming with it. I scrambled for the door handle. If I could just slip out, maybe I could reach the emergency stairs. But before I could turn the handle, the supply room lights flickered overhead, once, twice. Then they dimmed, not fully off, just low enough that the room turned gray and shadow-soaked. And in that dimness, I saw something new. A reflection in the small window of the supply room door. Someone standing behind me. Very tall, shoulders too broad, head tilted downward as if staring directly at me. I spun around fast, raising the mop handle. But there was nothing. Just shelves and cleaning bottles. The reflection was gone. I exhaled shakily. Then I heard something shift on the floor. I looked down. The patient wristband I'd dropped earlier was now sitting upright, as if someone had placed it there carefully. And written across it in fresh, wet ink were new words. "Turn around." I froze because I hadn't written that, and I wasn't holding a pen. My pulse hammered so hard it hurt. I lifted my eyes slowly, and behind me, in the dim reflection on the door's window, the tall shape was back, but closer, its head lowered, its shoulders rising with a slow, unnatural breath, its hand reaching. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Every instinct I had screamed that if I moved even an inch, that thing would close the distance between us. So I kept my eyes locked on its reflection in the small window. My breath came out shallow and fast, fogging the glass. Its hand hovered inches from my shoulder. Long fingers, too long. Like bones wrapped in thin gray skin. They curled slowly and deliberately, almost curious. I swallowed hard. "Who are you?" I whispered. The reflection didn't answer, but its fingers twitched as if reacting to my voice. Then, the light snapped back to full brightness. I whipped around. Nothing. Just rows of shelves again. The reflection was gone like it had never been there. I backed toward the door, grabbed the handle, and stepped into the hallway, only to find the entire corridor filled with white fog. Not steam, not smoke. Fog. Inside the building. I blinked hard. My eyes began to water, and the smell hit me. Cold, metallic, like old blood left in winter air. A low hum vibrated through the corridor. Something between an engine and a heartbeat. I started walking, one arm out in front of me, mop handle still clenched tight. Somewhere ahead, a faint strobe of red emergency light flickered. Then I saw it, a wheelchair, sitting perfectly still in the middle of the hallway. No patient, no nurse, just the chair, pointed directly at me. I moved carefully around it, keeping my distance, but as soon as I passed it, it rolled. Just a few inches, enough to scrape the floor. I spun, heart pounding. "Stop messing with me," I shouted into the fog. The hum deepened, vibrating through the floor, through my bones. Down the hall, I spotted room 413, the one every staff rumor revolved around, the one that had been sealed since the fire years ago. Except now, it wasn't sealed. The door was slightly open. The fog drifted out of it like breath from a sleeping giant. My walkie crackled again. Not breathing this time, a voice. A man's voice, hoarse, weak, but human. "Help me," and I froze. It came from room 413, the room that supposedly had no living patients. The room with a charred door and no working power. The room where the last night shift janitor had been found dead. I took a shaky step forward. "Who's in there?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady. The voice coughed, strained. "Please don't leave." I stood just outside the doorway. The fog inside was thicker, like staring into milk. I pushed the door open a bit more. With the mop handle, it stopped halfway. Something blocked it from the inside, something heavy. The voice whispered again, right at my ear this time. "He's coming." But it wasn't coming from inside the room. It was coming from behind me. The quiet hum of the building felt heavier now, like the place was breathing with me, or against me. I headed for the employee locker room, hoping to sit for just a minute, clear my head, make sense of whatever was happening. The moment I opened the door, a wave of cold air rolled out, much colder than the rest of the building, like someone had left a freezer open. The lights inside flickered, struggling to stay alive. Metal lockers lined both walls, all of them closed, all except one, my locker. The door was swung wide open, and inside, my uniform shirt was hanging from the hook, the same shirt I was already wearing. I whispered, No, this isn't right." The fabric on the hanging shirt began to move, slowly, like someone was breathing inside it. I stepped back, heart pounding so hard it felt like it shook the air around me. Then the locker slammed shut so violently that the metal rang like a bell. I turned to run, but the door to the hallway was no longer behind me. Instead, the locker room stretched into a narrow corridor I'd never seen before. Concrete, dark, dripping water. My stomach dropped. This wasn't part of the building. A sound echoed from the black hallway ahead. A long, dragging scrape, like fingernails pulling across concrete. Slow, deliberate. I whispered to myself, "Wake up. Please wake up." But the scraping grew louder, closer. The lights behind me exploded with a sharp pop, and the darkness swallowed me whole. Darkness wrapped around me like a thick blanket. I couldn't see my hands, couldn't see the walls, couldn't even tell if the ground under me was solid. But I could hear water dripping in slow, steady beats, my own breathing sharp and uneven. And beneath it, that dragging scrape, closer than before. I took one careful step forward. The floor was cold, wet concrete. Another step. My fingers brushed a wall beside me. It felt rough, old, like it had been carved out decades ago. I wasn't in the store anymore. I knew that. But the sound behind me made going back impossible. So I moved forward. After a few feet, a faint glow bloomed ahead of me. A soft, flickering orange light. I followed it, hoping it meant a way out. The corridor opened into a wider room, and when I stepped inside, I froze. Rows of old CRT security monitors filled the far wall. 12 screens, all humming with static, but slowly, one by one, the screens came to life, and each screen showed a different part of the store. The bakery, the frozen aisle, the loading dock, the break room, but none of them were empty. On every screen I saw myself, my exact self, standing in different aisles, facing away from the camera, breathing, moving, looking for something. No, that's not me, I whispered. It can't be. One of the versions of me on screen suddenly snapped its head upward, staring directly into the camera. The monitor crackled, distorted. Then that version of me smiled. A slow, unnatural stretch of the mouth. The lights in the room flickered. The speakers above the screens hissed, and a distorted, broken version of my own voice whispered through them. You should not be here. The corridor behind me groaned, like something heavy was crawling through it, and then the monitors all switched at once to static, except for one. It showed a live feed of the room I was standing in. The same rows of monitors, the same flickering lights, but there was a difference. In the feed, something was standing right behind me, tall, wrong-shaped, bent at the joints. Its fingers stretched toward my shoulder. I didn't breathe, I didn't move, but the figure in the feed leaned closer, and its hand began to lower toward me. I didn't turn around, not at first. My entire body locked up, frozen between terror and disbelief. On the monitor, that stretched, unnatural hand hovered inches above my shoulder. Its fingers were too long, too thin, like wires wrapped in skin. I swallowed hard. My throat felt like sandpaper. Slowly, very slowly, I stepped forward. The figure on the screen reacted instantly. Its head jerked up, its body snapped straight, as if pulled by invisible strings. Then the screen cut to static. The room went silent. No dripping, no scraping, not even the hum of the monitors. That silence felt honk, like the entire space was holding its breath. I backed toward the doorway, keeping my eyes on the screens. Then, behind me, a soft tapping began. One tap, then two, then three, like someone testing the wall with their fingernails. I turned. The corridor was darker than before. A thick blackness, like ink, poured across concrete, then something stepped out of it. First, I thought it was me. Same height, same uniform, same posture, but then it tilted its head too far, until I heard the crack, its arms bent at impossible angles. Its fingers scraped along the wall, pulling thin ribbons of concrete dust with each drag. It was wearing my shape, but inside it, something else was moving, shifting, squirming. The thing took one slow step. The lights above flickered. Another step. A static buzz filled the room. My reflection, the imitation, opened its mouth, and my own voice came out. Broken, wrong, like a recording played backward. You stayed too long. My chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at me to run. The creature lunged. I dove aside, the fingertips of its twisted hand grazing my shoulder. The touch burned, like ice pressed into my skin. I scrambled toward the corner of the monitor room. My hand hit something metal, a door handle. Without thinking, I yanked it open and threw myself inside, slammed it shut, locked it. Darkness swallowed me again, but this time I wasn't alone. From the far end of the small room, something whispered, "Finally, someone else who made it this far." I froze. Every muscle in my body went stiff. That voice didn't sound like the creature. It sounded human, weak, strained, but human. I slowly reached for my phone, switching on the lowest brightness. A faint glow filled the room. Someone was sitting in the corner, a man, middle-aged, pale, eyes sunken deep into his skull. His uniform, what was left of it, matched the security patches on my sleeve, but it was torn, shredded, as if something had grabbed him repeatedly. He lifted a trembling hand. "Turn that off," he whispered. "It sees light." I immediately killed the screen. Darkness wrapped around us again. What is going on here?" I whispered back. He let out a shaky breath. "You saw it, didn't you? The copy. The shadow thing." I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. His voice cracked as he continued. "Takes your shape. Then it learns you. Learns your walk, your voice, your thoughts. Once it knows everything, you disappear. They never find a body." My stomach twisted. "How long have you been in here?" A long pause. 4 nights, maybe 5. Time doesn't work right when it's close. My blood went cold. "You can't hide forever. It waits. It watches through reflections, through screens, through anything that shows even a hint of you." He breathed harder. "It already took one of us. Thomas. He was the new guy before you. Showed up for his first shift, and by the end of the night, it was wearing his face like a mask." I clenched my jaw. "This isn't possible. This has to be." "It is possible," he snapped, voice breaking, "because it's right outside." My heart stopped. I listened. There was breathing on the other side of the door, slow, measured, like someone mimicking the rise and fall of lungs. Then, a soft knock. 3 taps, perfectly spaced, perfectly calm. Then my own voice came through the door. "Are you done hiding?" The man grabbed my arm in the darkness. "When it speaks like you have minutes left," he whispered. "Maybe less." The thing outside dragged its fingers slowly across the metal door, making a long screech. "So, what do we do?" I whispered. The man's breath trembled. "We can run. We can fight. Or..." He swallowed hard. "We can give it someone else to copy." I stared into the darkness, horrified. He wasn't shaking from fear anymore. He was shaking from something else. Something closer to desperation or betrayal. The scraping outside the door grew louder, faster, heavy fingers raking metal, concrete, anything in its path. I pressed myself against the wall, clutching the man's arm. His hand was ice cold. We had only a few seconds to act. The man whispered, "You have to get out. Go now." "But what about you?" I stammered. He shook his head. "Doesn't matter. It doesn't care about me anymore." I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me to stay, to help. But the voice, my voice, on the other side of the door called again. "I know you're in there." It sounded patient, hungry, almost amused. I grabbed the man's wrist, pulled him toward the emergency exit he had mentioned in whispers before. The lights flickered wildly as we ran. The hallway seemed endless. Doors led nowhere. Walls shifted as if alive. I could hear the scraping, the whispers, mimicking our steps perfectly behind us. Finally, the emergency stairwell. Cold metal steps. I bolted down 3 flights, dragging the man with me. We reached the ground floor. The main lobby lights were back to normal, nothing unusual. Silent, safe. I looked back. The shadow thing had not followed us out. The man turned to me, face pale and shaking. "I don't know why it let us leave," he said, "but you're not safe. Not really. It knows your face now." I didn't sleep that night, or the next. or the night after that. I quit my job the following week. I moved to another city, a different hospital. But sometimes in reflections, in security monitors, in windows at night, I see it standing behind me, smiling, waiting, and I know it's learning. And one day it will find me again. If this story kept you watching, there's another real horror waiting for you. Click on the screen and don't watch it alone.